All right, so I am recording chapter 11 of book 3 in Two Cities. It starts on page 323, and the chapter is called Dusk. So this is immediately following the letter that we saw being read, or heard being read in chapter 10, that was written by Dr. Manette from prison. And immediately after that, everyone sentenced Charles Darnay to death within 24 hours. So he is essentially doomed, and we are just picking up pretty much where it left off. So it says, the wretched wife of the innocent man, thus doomed to die, fell under the sentence, as if she had been mortally stricken, but she uttered no sound, and so strong was the voice within her, representing that if she, of all the world, that it was she who, of all the world, who must uphold him in his misery and not augment it, that it quickly raised her even from that shock. So Lucy, immediately hearing that he was sentenced to death, she passes out, and then she realizes that she's like, I actually have to be strong for him right now. He's the one who's about to be killed, so like I should get up. So she stands back up. The judges having to take part in the public demonstration out of doors, the tribunal adjourned. The quick noise and movement of the court's emptying itself by many passages had not ceased, when Lucy stood stretching out her arms toward her husband, with nothing in her face but love and consolation. If I might touch him, if I might embrace him once, O good citizens, if you would have so much compassion for us. There was but a jailer left, along with 2 of the 4 men who had taken him last night, and Barsad. The people had all poured out to the show in the streets. Barsad proposed to the rest, let her embrace him then, it is but a moment. It was silently acquiesced in, and they passed her over the seats in the hall to a raised place, where he, by leaning over the dock, could hold her in his arms. So Barsad made it so that they could hug, because obviously Barsad knows what's going on. So he was like, okay, let them hug. Farewell, dear darling of my soul, my parting blessing on my love. We shall meet again where the weary are at rest. They were her husband's words as he held her to his bosom. I can hear it, dear Charles. I am supported from above. Don't suffer for me. A parting blessing for our child. I send it to her way by you. I kiss her by you. I say farewell to her by you. My husband, no, a moment. He was tearing himself apart from her. We shall not be separated long. I feel that this will break my heart by and by, and I will do my duty while I can, and when I leave her, God will raise up friends for her, as he did for me. So Lucy's like, I foresee myself dying of heartbreak from this, and like I think that Lucy will get taken care of by other people who love us. Her father had followed her and would have fallen on his knees to both of them, but that Darnay put out a hand and seized him, crying, No, no, what have you done, that you should kneel to us? You know now what a struggle you made of old. We know now what you underwent when you suspected my descent, and when you knew it. We know how the natural antipathy you strove against and conquered for her dear sake. We thank you with all our hearts and all our love and duty. Heaven be with you. Her father's only answer was to draw his hands through his white hair and wring them with a shriek of anguish. It could not be otherwise, said the prisoner. All things have worked together as they have fallen out. It was the always vain endeavor to discharge my poor mother's trust at first brought my fatal presence near you. Good could never come of such evil. A happier end was not in nature to so unhappy a beginning. Be comforted and forgive me. Heaven bless you. So he's trying to comfort the Manettes. As he was drawn away, his wife released him and stood looking after him with her hands touching one another in the attitude of prayer, and with a radiant look upon her face, in which there was even a comforting smile. As he went out of the prisoner's door, she turned, laid her head lovingly on her father's breast, tried to speak to him, and fell at his feet. Then, issuing from the obscure corner from which he had never moved, Sidney Carton came and took her up. Only her father and Mr. Lorry were with her. His arm trembled as it raised her and supported her head. Yet there was an air about him that was not at all of pity, that had a flush of pride in it. Shall I take her to the coach? I shall never feel her weight. So Sidney rushes in as soon as she passes out and Charles is gone, comes and picks her up and is like, I'll bring her home. He carried her lightly to the door and laid her tenderly down in a coach. Her father and their old friend got into it, and he took his seat beside the driver. When they arrived at the gateway where he had paused in the dark not many hours before to picture himself on which of the rough stones of the street her feet had trodden, he lifted her again and carried her up the staircase to their rooms. There he laid her down on the couch where her child and Miss Pross wept over her. "Don't recall her to herself," he said softly to the latter. "She is better so. Don't revive her to consciousness while she only faints." So he's like, don't wake her up, like she's just gonna keep fainting, so you might as well just let her like essentially sleep and rest. "Oh, Carton, Carton, dear Carton," cried little Lucy, singing up and throwing her arms passionately around him in a burst of grief. "Now that you have come, I think you will do something to help Mamma, something to save Papa. Oh, look at her, dear Carton. Can you, of all the people who love her, bear to see her so?" So this is little Lucy, like, asking this of Carton. He bent over the child and laid her blooming cheek against his face. He put her gently from him and looked at her unconscious mother. "Before I go," he said, and paused, "I may kiss her?" Listen to this. So this is really important. This is another retrospective moment. So when we talked about that before, where it's like recalling something later on. So listen, it's really important. So it says, "It was remembered afterwards that when he bent down and touched her face with his lips, he murmured some words. The child who was nearest to him, little Lucy, told them afterwards, and told her grandchildren when she was a handsome old lady, that she heard him say, 'A life you love.'" Okay, so this is obviously a retrospective back onto page 148 when he had come and proposed or told her that he loved her, professed his love for her, and he said, "A life you love." Like, I would do anything to save a life you love. So now he's referencing that again, and he's like, "I've got you, a life that you love." When he had gone out into the next room, he turned suddenly on Mr. Lorry and her father, who were following, and said to the latter, so Carton talking to Dr. Manette, "You had great influence but yesterday, Dr. Manette. Let it at least be tried. These judges and all of the men in power are very friendly to you, and very recognizant of your services, are they not? Nothing connected with Charles was concealed from me. I had the strongest assurances that I should save him, and I did, yet..." He returned the answer in great trouble and very slowly. "Try them again. The hours between this and tomorrow afternoon are few but short, but try. I intend to. I will not rest a moment." So basically, Sidney Carton goes over to Dr. Manette and is like, "Hey, like, you had influence before, you should try again." And this isn't because he actually thinks that there's any chance. Like, he knows that there's no chance of getting it off, but he knows he just wants to keep Dr. Manette busy, so that he won't also relapse at this point, because that would also make it worse. Okay, so 326 says, "That's well. I have known such energy as yours do great things before now, though never," he added, with a smile and a sigh together, "such great things as this. But try. Of little worth as life is when we misuse it. It is worth that effort. It would cost nothing to lay there if it were not." So he's like, you might as well try. "I will go," said Dr. Manette, "to the prosecutor and the president straight, and I will go to others whom it is better not to name. I will write too. But stay, there is a celebration in the streets, and no one will be accessible until dark." "That's true. It is a forlorn hope at best, and not much the forlonger for being delayed till dark. I should like to know how you speed, though. Mind, I expect nothing. When are you likely to have seen these dread powers, Dr. Manette?" "Immediately after dark, I should hope, within an hour or two from this." "It will be dark soon after 4. Let us stretch the hour or two. If I go to Mr. Lorry's at 9, shall I hear what you have done, either from your friend or from yourself?" "Yes, may you prosper." Mr. Lorry followed Sidney to the outer door, and touching him on the shoulder, as he was going away, caused him to turn. "I have no hope," said Mr. Lorry in a sorrowful whisper. "Nor have I," said Carton. "If any of these men, or all of these men, were disposed to spare him, which is a large supposition, for what is his life, or any man's to them, I doubt if they durst spare him in the demonstration of the court. And so do I. I heard the fall of the axe in that sound." Mr. Lorry leaned his arm upon the doorpost and bowed his face upon it. "Don't despond," said Carton very gently. "Don't grieve. I encouraged Dr. Manette in this idea because I felt that it might one day be consolatory to her. Otherwise she might think if his life was wantonly thrown away and wasted, and that might trouble her." "Yes, yes," returned Mr. Lorry, drying his eyes. "You are right. But he will perish. There is no real hope." "Yes," said Carton, "he will perish. There is no real hope," echoed Carton, and walked with a settled step downstairs. Oh, so sad.